let's talk briefly about modifiers. And if you're wondering what a modifier is, it's a group of words that modifies or changes or adds information to the subject of a sentence. This is why, by the way, it's so important to be able to identify subjects and verbs in a sentence. So let me give you an example of this. I'll say something like this: wagging his tail. Maybe I'll say wagging his tail excitedly. Excitedly. I gave my dog a treat. Dog a treat. Let's consider that sentence for a second. First off, you may have noticed this, and I hope you did. This is an example of non-essential information separated by a comma. That's what we were talking about in the punctuation chapter. Review that if you need to. So wagging his tail excitedly, comma, I gave my dog a treat. What's the subject of this sentence? Who's doing the action? Well, I am, right? I am giving my dog a treat. I gave my dog a treat. Is this modifier modifying the subject that it's supposed to, or modifying the person that it's supposed to? Well, as it's written now, the way it sounds is wagging his tail excitedly. I, as in I'm wagging his tail excitedly, gave my dog a treat. That does not make any sense, right? If you have this situation that is a sentence that starts with a modifier, the other example I'll use was Abraham Lincoln, like born in 1800, comma, Abraham Lincoln. The only thing or the only subject that can come after this comma is Abraham Lincoln, because that's who was born in 1800. Similarly here, so this is right and this is wrong, just to be clear. Similarly here, wagging his tail excitedly, comma, the only subject that could come after that comma is what? Well, it's my dog, right? So with modifiers, the modifiers need to point directly at the subject of the sentence. Let's take a look at a problem. Pause the video and give this question a shot. Research published in 2024 offers a likely explanation for Ludwig van Beethoven's deafness. One of the greatest musicians of the 19th century, comma, and then we got to decide what goes in there. Well, if you understand what a modifier is and how modifiers work, this is a pretty straightforward question. What's the modifier here? Well, it's this opening part of the sentence. One of the greatest musicians of the 19th century, comma, that's non-essential information separated by a comma. It's a modifier, right? It's modifying the subject of the sentence. So without even looking at the answer options, I know that the first word after this comma has to be something like the composer or Beethoven or Ludi or whatever his nickname was, right? It can't be anything else, because this opening line, one of the greatest musicians of the 19th century, is specifically referring to Beethoven. All right, so let's take a look at the answer options here. A is a tempting one, right? Because sure enough, it's the composer. But we're not talking about the composer. We're talking about the composer's hair, right? That's the subject of this sentence. What shows that he ingested excessive amounts of lead? It's the composer's hair. So that doesn't work, right? Excessive amounts of lead. Are the excessive amounts of lead one of the greatest musicians of the 19th century? No. One of the greatest musicians of the 19th century is referring to Beethoven, not to his hair, nor to excessive amounts of lead. It's not referring to his hair. Again, one of the greatest musicians of the 19th century, hair from the composer? No. The only one we can pick here is answer option D, right? One of the greatest musicians of the 19th century, the composer, likely ingested excessive amounts of lead, semicolon. This lead appears in his hair. D is the only answer option that works.